I'm Janna Guilfoyle. I'm a third year student in the clinical psych PhD program at Feinberg. And I work with Dr. Molly Walsh, who heads the Neurodevelopmental Disabilities Lab in the Evanston campus.
I'm Molly Winston. I'm a fifth year clinical psych student at the Feinberg program, also in Dr. Walsh's lab with Janna.
And Molly, you're about to defend, right?
I am. That's the plan.
Very exciting.
You're at the end of that journey.
Yes, I'm moving on to internship soon.
And Amanda, please introduce yourself as well.
Yes, my name is Amanda Nili. I am a fourth year doctoral student in the clinical psych program at Feinberg, and I work with Dr. Lori Wachschlag in the Developmental Mechanisms program. I wanted us to start by talking a little bit about what it means to get involved in research, both what your experiences were starting out as undergrads yourselves or new researchers, and also some things that you've seen working with undergrads at Northwestern. So Janna, since I see your mic's off, could you talk with us a little bit about how you chose to get involved in developmental science and what you see with undergrads working in your lab?
Yeah, well, I had kind of a different path. So I actually was very, very, very lightly involved in research in undergrad. And I think for me, that was because I was just really naive to the opportunities that were available around me until very late in the game. So when I did get involved, I had a feeling of, I wish somebody had told me that I could have done all of this stuff and that I needed to. So it was sort of a different path. And I think at least the undergrads that we have in our lab, for the most part, tend to be people that have a good understanding of the opportunities that are available to them and how they can navigate Northwestern system to get credit or time dedicated to doing research, which tends to be mostly a lot of independent study. We also have volunteers and people that take advantage of the work study system.
I think that's a really good point. I have a very similar story in terms of realizing maybe in my third year of a four-year undergraduate program, oh darn, everyone's been doing research this whole time, and feeling really behind and like it was too late. And obviously it wasn't, because I'm a graduate student now, but I definitely relate to that feeling or that moment of panic or clarity where it's like, oh, well, there were opportunities out there and this is important, but I don't really know why it's important or what about it is important. And Molly, I'm wondering what your path was to get here.
Yeah. So I went to a small liberal arts school, and so there weren't actually as many research opportunities in my college as there were at some bigger universities like Northwestern, who have really strong research programs. So I found my research experiences actually in the Chicagoland area over the summer as a research intern. And so I really sought those out to supplement or complement my experience in college. And then I was able to network and stay in touch with my mentors at the university I was researching at, and we still maintain a really nice relationship and continue to work on projects together. So taking initiative and reaching out to other people and places beyond my undergrad was really helpful in getting involved.
Yeah, I know it definitely takes an act of bravery, right? Because sometimes you're cold emailing or contacting people you have no existing relationship with. That's how you build those relationships. What I'm wondering is how you went about finding those research experiences.
Yeah, so I kind of, at least for my research experiences, I started looking at funded research experience for undergrads like REUs. And it turned out, given that I hadn't had previous research experience, I wasn't so competitive for those. And I think for people starting out in research, that's a pretty common experience that people might have. And so I ended up, reaching out to other like physicians and PIs in the area that I wanted to be, which was Chicago, and cold emailing them. So basically researching people who I thought were aligned with my research interests and emailing them. And actually the mentor that I worked with is part of DevSci now. So it all came full circle.
I think that's a piece also that a lot of undergrads aren't always aware of, that it's okay to do that. It's okay to research the labs at your university, find ones that you're aligned with. Most of them on their websites will point you to who the appropriate person is to contact if you're interested in joining the lab. I think I didn't totally know that. I was like sort of waiting for experiences to present themselves to me rather than knowing that it was okay for me to just be like, hey, I'm interested in this and I'd like to see how I can get involved.
Absolutely. And I do think there's an art form to the cold email, to any kind of cold contact, right? Calling someone you've never met before, emailing them. I know what I think of when I think of a good email being, hello, this is who I am. This is why I'm interested in your lab with some specific example. And then also being able to say, this is what I'm hoping to get from this experience. And doing all of that in 4 to 5 sentences, because these are busy people, I would really like to hear what each of you consider to be a part of that, if anything. Like, what am I missing in terms of the anatomy of a good cold email?
I think that your anatomy of an email was pretty on point. I would also say to write them in a very professional way. We get a lot of inquiries from students who may not be familiar with like a research lab environment that are very casual, and may not reflect this student as well as they would like to. And I also think although not part of the initial email, following up with people is super important. A lot of times, PIs get hundreds of emails a day, and it is super common for one to just slide under the radar. So following up by email, and also finding if there's a better person to be contacting. So, sometimes the PI is the right person, but sometimes they'll have on their email like a lab manager or a grad student who might be better to contact to see how to get involved in research.
That is such a good point. I think that's something that I take for granted a lot. And the whole point of these conversations is to figure out what things we're taking for granted that people need to know. So, yes, professionalism, absolutely. And that's a beautiful segue to this next thing I want to talk about.